Character ID is changing the way employers hire by empowering job seekers to lead with the soft skills and attributes that they've developed, not just the keywords listed on their resume. With Character ID, employers can quickly identify applicants whose top character attributes align with their culture, selecting for fit versus relying on work history and educational background alone. Welcome to the stage, Mr. Josh Jensen, founder of Character ID. Josh, where are you? There you are. Oh.
I'm right here.
Oh, there you are. Take it away.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. I'm Josh Jensen, founder of Character ID. Character ID was created on the premise that skills can be taught, but only specific attributes can be developed over time. And it's these attributes that transcend industries. Character ID is a software HR solution that allows employers for the first time the ability to move the character reference check to the front of the selection process, effectively changing how, and more importantly, who you hire. Have you ever hired someone off the internet using job boards like Indeed or ZipRecruiter? And was it an awesome experience? My guess is probably not. For nearly 20 years, I've worked at the executive level, hiring and developing individuals and teams, driving culture change in a variety of different environments, ranging from Fortune 100 companies to small businesses. And I've interviewed literally thousands of applicants off the internet, and always with the same frustrations. If I scheduled 10 interviews from the internet, on average, 5 would no-show me or would cancel last minute. And of the 5 that did show, I usually wished that 3 or 4 of them hadn't. I call them paper tigers because they look so dangerous on paper. And when they show up, a lot of times they were a big letdown. The problem was that all those resumes were being fed to me using the same AI keyword search technology as the next guy. And all I really cared about was the person I was hiring and not the titles that they've held, right? But there was never really a way to select for the human. And on more than one occasion, I thought I'd made the perfect hire, only to discover 6 months later, I'd made a huge mistake. What I discovered years later is that job seekers on the other side of this process are equally as frustrated. In 2017, I shuttered my businesses in Puerto Rico in the aftermath of Hurricane Maria. And I'd bet the farm. And for the first time in years, I found myself in a position where I was starting over and I just needed a job. And when I received my 73rd automated rejection email that told me I was not qualified according to my resume for a position I was beyond qualified for, I knew there was a problem. So I did a social experiment and I posted on LinkedIn and Facebook with people that I'd worked with over the years that I was looking for an opportunity. And within 3 minutes, my phone rang, text messages went off, and my LinkedIn inbox started to build up. So this is what inspired me to start Character ID. Now, I want to be clear about the size and scope of this problem. I need you to know how frustrating this issue is for everybody involved in this process. Employers know it's not working, employees know it's not working, and recent studies by the Harvard Business School and Accenture confirm what we've all known for years. So why have we been relying on the same resume keyword searches we've used since Monster merged with Online Career Center back in 1995? And why are employers still spending billions of dollars each year on the same broken mousetraps? The market potential is actually huge. The total addressable market this year globally is expected to top $500 billion. Here in the US alone, 160 billion is expected this year. 75% of that revenue is derived just by staffing agencies that do placement for a fee, anywhere from 15% to 30% of base salary. So these are companies that are saying, I'm willing to pay tens of thousands of dollars per hire just to avoid this headache. And companies are continuing to pour money into better hiring practices. Postings for HR coordinators alone are up over 80% compared to pre-pandemic numbers. So what's the solution? Solution is to hire for character and train for skill. And who better to speak to an applicant's character in the workplace more than their coworkers? So what if you could tap your applicants' coworkers as part of your recruiting team at the front of the hiring process, instead of relying on personal reference checks for one candidate at the end of the process? Here's how it works. Character ID is an opt-in platform where users, either by request of the hiring company or by their own motivation, ask past and present coworkers to assess their character. Users create a profile, complete a self-assessment, and input the names and contact information for past and present coworkers of their choosing. Our system sends an SMS to coworker smartphones, and they rate you 1 to 5 stars on 18 specific and clearly defined attributes. You'll get a notification that's completed for you, but you'll never know what they scored you. It's completely confidential. Once a minimum number of assessments are completed, You receive an aggregate character ID score plus individual scores on the 18 attributes so that you can see exactly where you're strongest in the eyes of others and where you have potential opportunities for improvement. So as an employer, imagine being able to identify applicants based on their character strengths and not just the titles they've held or the industries they've worked in. Imagine identifying applicants that align with the makeup of your ideal culture, things that are important to you like integrity, grit, emotional maturity, or coachability, and being able to see who exactly is assessing their character and how their scores differ among subordinates, coworkers, their managers, or customers, and being able to manage this process from our platform or your existing HR management system like Deltek or Bamboo HR. Now, the competitive landscape is kind of a fascinating one, primarily because nobody's doing what we're doing at CharacterID. Unlike internet recruiting sites like ZipRecruiter and Indeed, CharacterID allows employers to evaluate the applicants based on the soft skills they've developed over time, not just the technical training and education they received. And unlike personality and communication style assessments like DISC or Myers-Briggs, we're getting to the core of who the person is and not just how they might behave in certain situations. What I've learned in my experience is that there's a major difference between personality and character. And how often have we worked with someone whose personality is magnetic, they're charismatic, but you're not sure you trust them to watch your kids? And what's more is these personality assessments are completed by the applicant or employee about themselves, often asking them to choose how others would describe you. Character is unique because character is not what you think about you. Your character can really only be determined by others. CharacterID is the only completely confidential, peer review character assessment that can be used pre-interview, pre-hire, as well as post-hire as a development tool internally. And it takes your peers about 2 minutes to complete. But here's the kicker, is your CharacterID profile stays with you. Character isn't something you build in a day. It's something you develop over time. And your CharacterID score and profile will develop and change as you do for all to see. Your custom URL can be shared on LinkedIn, texted to friends, promoted on social, regardless of whether or not you might be looking to change jobs. Now, I've only been talking about CharacterID publicly for a little over 60 days, and the unsolicited corporate interest has been amazing. I mean, these companies have reached out to me about piloting our platform, including Masco Corporation, Evolution Biologics, New York Life Insurance, Mass Mutual, Cooper Independent School District, which last year had over 2,800 applicants for 105 teaching positions, Bravo Environmental Northwest, and a long list of local businesses like Bellataza and Severson Plumbing. Now, I've learned two things from my discussions with these companies I just listed. Number one is the industries include manufacturing, biotechnology, financial services, education, waste management, and tradespeople. The demand for CharacterID is vertical agnostic and blue and white collar agnostic. The second thing I've learned is that we're severely underestimating our market potential. The numbers I shared with you earlier, 160 billion spent in this year alone in the US, is spent on external resources. New York Life, for example, spends north of $19 million each year on in-house proprietary recruiting tools and technology alone. Now, with the recent press and attention we've received, I've also fielded dozens of calls and emails from people I've known for years who are saying the same thing. They're saying, Josh, this is a fantastic idea and it's way overdue. And I want to use it, but also if you're involved, I want to be too. And how can I invest in you and this company? To date, CharacterID has been 100% bootstrapped. We followed the lean startup method from day one, performed countless customer feedback sessions with both employers and employees. And after 18 months, my first dev house literally ghosted me and left us back at the starting block. So I took some time to find someone I could trust to help us relaunch our efforts. And in the last 6 months, I have one junior developer working part-time in the evenings. And on December 1st, we're launching our B2C MVP. Last month, we incorporated as a C Corp in Delaware and expect to be positioned for seed investment in as little as 30 days. Our team is small but mighty, and I've known everyone personally on our advisory board for well over 10 years. The talent ranges from senior level executives for global companies to founders with successful exits under their belts. Today, I'm really here just seeking mentorship, strategic partnerships, and I'm searching for a CTO or technical partner to help us build and jetpack our B2B solution to market. I really wish I could be here with you all today, and I'd love to visit with anyone who has felt the frustrations that I've described just now, and who wants to help us completely change the way employers hire. So I know my contact information isn't up there, so you can email me at josh@mycharacterid.com. Thank you.
Wow, Josh. This is so cool and so needed. Do you yourself have a character ID yet? What is your score? Are you willing to share it?
I do. I'm a 4.8. I'm a 4.8, and it's
Out of
it,
5.
what's that?
Out of 5?
Out of 5. That's right. Out of 5.
Nice.
I didn't
Approachable.
score as high on coachability as I really hoped. So.
Hey, you know what? You're young, Josh. You've got time. I believe in you. This is so cool. It's so cool. I'm wondering, are there any questions from the audience just yet? Yes, Kurt.
What kind of safeguards are there against fraud, like identifying your lovely wife as your coworker?
Great question. So what kind of safeguards against fraud are in place?
Against fraud. What type of fraud?
Well, so like stacking the deck. So like, like if he's having his wife, like give him a boost in his score, how would you?
That's a great question. Great. We have a few safeguards in place. So first, a custom URL is released to each individual in the system, right? So it can only be used once, so then it expires. The second safeguard that we've built into the system is we request and suggest that the user sign in using their LinkedIn and that any assessor sign in using LinkedIn. And so when that happens, the system will recognize that those two people did in fact work at the same place at the same time. And those character ID scores are considered validated. It's a validated score. So we're not prohibiting anyone from getting a score in the initial stages, but those validated scores are a lot more meaningful to an employer.
But you gotta love that the attorney in the room was stacking the deck, making a strategy. Okay, yes, sir.
Just a question regarding disruption. So the risk with your business getting disrupted by other service providers that are already in the market.
So the risk of your business getting disrupted by other service providers that are already in the market.
I mean, that is always a risk, right? I mean, the reality is that no one's doing anything like this whatsoever. We've been working on this since 2018. And the thing that we have going for us is that having spent nearly 20 years in the recruiting, training, and development space as a hiring manager, and then having kind of the world turned upside down and having felt the frustrations from the other side, it wasn't until then that I knew how frustrated job seekers had been. And I don't know anyone who's had that level of experience on both sides of the market, but I think could develop this concept in the way that we have. I think that's our competitive advantage.
Anybody? Yes.
So I'm just really curious. You talk about these snapshots in time, right? So when you leave a job before you go to a job, isn't there a risk of bias in those results or quantitative data?
Is there a risk of bias in the results or quantitative data in these snapshots in time for different jobs that people have been at? Because they're asking their friends, their colleagues.
100%. I mean, and that's kind of the thing is that character, that's what it is. It's bias. There's biases all over the place, right? It's completely subjective. What we're doing though is we're saying, we want to find out what people's characters in the workplace. That's ultimately what I care about. The challenge right now with the way that we do this is that we call personal reference checks at the end of the process. But when I call your best friend from high school, they're going to say you're awesome. It's always the situation. What I really want to do is call your past employer and talk to those people. But with employment law, I'm not permitted to do that. I can't ask them anything. And so that's the interesting thing about character assessment is that the way that one person might evaluate someone on, like I said, something like coachability might be slightly different than the way someone else evaluates that same person. And it's all based on their experiences with those people over time. All we're doing is finding a way to extrapolate those experiences and quantify it so that I, as an employer, can look and see how they rate amongst their peers from day one before I ever interview them.
Well, and it seemed like when you were talking, you had some sort of plan for kind of, averaging out or softening some of these tough edges. Like we've all had maybe an awkward situation at an old job or a kind of a one-off that didn't go well. And so you can kind of identify when something's skewing that's not necessarily accurate and you can maybe correct that in the software. Did I understand that correctly?
Yeah, we can clearly find outliers, right? Things that don't seem to fit, right? That's good. That's fairly easy to identify. Yeah.
That's cool. Okay. Any other questions in the audience? I mean, I have an obvious question. Are you going to take this to the dating scene? Because I feel like it's needed. Okay, Josh, you know what? We'll talk another time. Thank you so much. This is brilliant, and I look forward to seeing where you take it. Wonderful pitch, really wonderful pitch.